All right. Hi, everyone. Jen Broyles here. And I am so excited to have with me today Josh Sabourin. Josh is a Sibo survivor, like many of us, right? And he's a healthy lifestyle entrepreneur who created SiboSurvivor.com. Definitely need to check out his website. And after dealing with a personal health crisis in his own life, when he came down with a GI condition called Sibo, he decided to really dive into natural health for remedies. And he is working now to combine his passions for natural health and business to create products that really improve the quality of life for people who suffer with intestinal issues and digestive issues. Josh is an advocate of yoga, herbal medicine, healthy cooking, and an alternative treatment methods, just a variety of alternative methods. And it's my pleasure to introduce Josh, and we're going to spend the next few minutes just talking. And really, Josh, I really want to learn about kind of your story and your journey. And thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, so hey everyone, and thanks for having me. I'm excited to kind of be on the show and share my story in hopes that, someone else can relate to it and, find some benefit out of my story.
Absolutely. So Josh, tell me about your health journey. When did your symptoms start? What were you experiencing? What are some of the things that you tried, whether they were helpful or not?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, it's kind of been not a long journey, but it's been a somewhat frustrating journey, like a lot of people. I started to come down with symptoms, I would say like minor symptoms in high school. It wasn't bad enough to the point where like it was really causing issues in my life. But then I went off to college and I was a baseball player throughout high school and college. So I was into like the workout culture and kind of like a high stress environment. And so I went off to college at a junior college actually in San Diego. And it wasn't until my second year in college that I remember this, this time period of like my digestive symptoms like really got bad. And it was like really, I'd never experienced anything quite like it before. Like the symptoms of, diarrhea, gas, bloating, cramps, all those things had kind of like really exacerbated and kind of really kind of taken me down in some regard to where I had to kind of seek out. That was the first time where I really had to seek out like different like gastroenterologists and other doctors who like could hopefully help my gut, because it was really like I had to take the season like part of the baseball season off actually in training, just because I was so fatigued and so just mentally drained. So that's kind of when my symptoms really started. And then from there I kind of went down a path of like searching, trying different doctors, and then like a lot of people just kind of testing, experimenting, and finding their own routines that work effectively for them.
Yeah. Wow. And that had to be rough, like mentally and emotionally, to have to take time away from baseball, which is probably your passion. I mean, what was that like?
Yeah, definitely. Baseball was definitely my passion when I was younger, and
Mhm.
um, it was really hard because I actually had like potential for a scholarship to go play at a D1 college the next year, and I kind of was kicked out of that just because I really got sick, and I really kind of had to take a step back and say like, hey, I need to get my health under control, and something's not right. So it was a very challenging time period in my life, but like I don't know, looking back on it, it can be looked at as a blessing in disguise too, because I'm so passionate and so into health and kind of learning about all this stuff now too. So
Yep. Absolutely. I think for a lot of us, it is kind of that blessing in disguise where it leads us down a totally new path that we would have never picked ourselves per se, in the world of natural health and wellness, and we just develop a passion for helping others. So,
yeah.
that is really neat. So, um, you said when you started experiencing symptoms, it was unlike anything you'd ever experienced before. So, had you had like what you would call healthy digestion growing up, or did you, what was that like for you? Was it
Yeah.
just,
Yeah, I would say for the most part, yes. My
Hmm.
digestion was, as a younger kid, it was pretty healthy. I would say, I would have occasional like
Hmm.
issues, but it was nothing substantial and nothing like to the point where it was, like this is really bothering me.
Yeah.
Like I would have the normal like, occasional every once in a blue moon like diarrhea from food or whatever like that. But it wasn't
Yeah.
like when I was younger, it really wasn't an issue like it got to be. And
Hmm.
when I came down with those severe symptoms, it got to the point where it was like it was controlling my life basically. And um, like I had never been fatigued to that level before. I was always like when I was younger, high energy, like athlete, doing a lot of things, working out, kind of like a type A personality type of person. And that was really the first time where when I came down with this illness where it was like, okay, wow, like I'm exhausted, like really bad gas, really bad bloating, and then kind of like altered bowel function, but like more of like I kind of fluctuated between diarrhea and constipation. So it was really weird. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and that happens to a lot of people dealing with SIBO, is that mixed
Yeah.
type. Absolutely, and it's interesting that you said that you had always been this type A personality, because I see that all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
that's me. That is almost every single one of my clients. I think there's something to that, is the
Yeah.
personality as well, and it's just interesting how it's kind of a theme.
Yeah.
And
That is really interesting. Just because I don't know, it could be just part of me kind of speculating here is that like, we're so wound up all the time and like it's almost like we need something to happen to us to say, hey, like look at the bigger picture, like slow down, take it easy, give your body a rest, right? That's kind
mhm.
of sometimes what I think happens.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think there is something to that. So tell me, when, what were some of the things you started doing? Obviously, you said you went to see a gastroenterologist. Like, tell me about the process you went through to discover healing.
Yeah, so it really started with when I got kind of sick like that. It really started with I seeked out like a normal gastroenterologist. So um, I seeked out a gastroenterologist here in San Diego, and basically, like a lot of people, when they go to a mainstream doc, they tell them they're having digestive problems, and I was kind of just the doctor didn't really know what to do, and he kind of just gave me a laxative and said like avoid dairy, like you probably can't have milkshakes because those usually cause issues. So I was like, okay, like I usually don't have milkshakes anyways. So,
Right.
um, so like the typical things when you go to a conventional doctor where I would say at that point the research really wasn't out there and they kind of didn't have a great scientific conclusion to go off of, right? So that was the best they could do is say like, hey, like try this, right? Try some like Miralax and avoid
Mhm.
dairy and you know, let me know how you feel. And then also exercise, right? Because they always say exercise. And
Yeah.
it's funny because like telling me to exercise when like all I do is play baseball and like work out is like, okay, like I don't think that's the issue here. So
Yeah. Oh,
um so that's where it started. And then that really kind of led me down the path of okay, that doctor wasn't helping, so I needed to seek something else. So then actually my dad is a dentist and he was kind of like, you know, he cares about me a lot too, right? So like he was looking into what can he do that can help him out, right? To kind of get him back up on his feet. So he actually found some of the research that Pimentel was doing up at Cedar Sinai and the team there, and he saw that like using a course of rifaximin and the other methods that they use there could be helpful for people with IBS, which is the diagnosis I had received at that time.
mhm.
um, so I ended up asking the gastroenterologist who I had seen, like, what do you think about this? Can we try this? It's been proven to have pretty good success rates in people with IBS and bacterial overgrowth, and I suspect that's probably what's going on. So that was kind of like my dad's kind of research, found that on his own, and then I suggested that to the doctor, and I tried that, and it was amazing. I did rifaximin for the first time, and it was almost like just like flipping a light switch where everything was perfect. And
Wow.
but looking back, it was almost like too good to be true, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like that was my first time ever trying that treatment, and it worked amazingly. Like I was probably good after that for 4 months, to where it was practically overnight. I remember it pretty vividly, where I took the first antibiotic capsule, uh, first one of the treatment, at nighttime before I went to bed. And then the next day I woke up and all my symptoms were gone. My stool was formed and I felt great. So it was like, wow, like this is amazing. There's something, like we're kind of onto something, right? There's something going on here. And at that time I didn't know as much about like, relapse rates and stuff like that. But all I could fathom at that time was like, okay, this is awesome. Like I feel great. So, I did that treatment for, I think it was 2 weeks, and then it kept everything away for probably a good 4 months. And I was really excited about that because I hadn't felt good in a long time. So, but then like a lot of people, I relapsed, down the road, and that kind of led me down another path of like, okay, like this comes back, this sucks, right? Like I get it to go away and then it comes back and all these symptoms start flaring up again. So, what can I do? So that kind of led me into another journey of like, I seeked out another doctor, and I actually went up to the team at Cedars-Sinai, and so I saw a doctor up there. And then kind of got into alternative medical practices from there, just because I realized that, developing a lifestyle and developing like a holistic approach to, keeping my symptoms under control, because I did have a habit of relapsing, was for me really important.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's kind of my story in a brief nutshell.
That that's awesome, and it's really neat to hear how well rifaximin worked for you.
Yeah.
So 4 months later, you relapsed. So, what other solutions did you try and protocols did you try that were helpful?
Yeah, definitely. So, antibiotics they help me a ton.
Mm-hmm.
That's number one. Number two, I've done the elemental diet, and
Okay.
that's almost been actually better than antibiotics sometimes. So like, um, to this day, like my symptoms, I can manage them and they're under control pretty well. But there are times when I do like kind of relapse and flare up. So
Mm-hmm.
I kind of have this, strategy for myself now. And even to this day, like I have the elemental diet in my toolkit, just because it's kind of like a reset for
Mm-hmm.
me sometimes, because that worked just as effectively as antibiotics for myself. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'd say so. Those two, um, Prokinetics helped, because I definitely have discovered that I do have an issue with motility, like a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people. But I haven't taken Prokinetics like very long term. They were just like after a course of treatment for like 3 or 4 months, and then I got off of them, and that would usually kind of kickstart and give me a boost. So,
Okay. Okay.
um, and then so other things that have helped, I'd say really just a few supplements and a few like lifestyle modifications. For me and for a lot of people, I found that it's really finding your own comprehensive strategy, right? Like a combination of natural methods and like treatment if you need it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'd say majority of people want to stay natural if possible, but it is necessary sometimes to use pharmaceuticals and different treatment protocols. So as far as natural things that have helped me, herbal tea has been huge. I still drink that like probably every day now. Magnesium at night sometimes. Digestive enzymes. I usually take digestive enzymes, which help a lot. Um, and then really just even something like an Epsom salt bath a couple times a week when I'm kind of stressed and you know, a little more into that go, 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 like trying to get a
Hmm.
lot of work done. It kind of allows me to calm my body down.
Yeah.
And then let's see, other than that, I've gotten into surfing, which has actually been really good for my health. I needed something as a type A personality. I really needed something where I could kind of get out of my own brain and like go do something and be in the moment, right? Because
Hmm.
a lot of times for me personally, like I tend to think a lot. And when I'm like researching and thinking about like, let's say my gut is not feeling as good, or I'm in a time period where it's like symptoms are flaring up a little bit. And it's like, you know, I can get into this mode of like constantly thinking about it and like constantly monitoring it. And it's like, that's good to a certain extent, but I found that like it is important to kind of get out of your own brain sometimes and like go do something, go be with people, even something like helping other people out, getting out of your own mind is really healthy. Um, and then, yeah, I would say those are kind of the main things.
Ugh, I love it. I totally agree with you about getting out of your own head. And yeah, I think a lot of us, when we're not feeling well, we are like all along, Dr. Google to the rescue. And it
Yeah.
leads us down this rabbit hole of like, it doesn't help. It hurts. It's like,
Yeah.
if you do it obsessively, it can be detrimental, right?
Yeah.
Because you're putting yourself in a very negative headspace and
Yeah.
bringing in a lot of fear.
And I'm going to add one thing there too
Yeah.
that's really maybe, you know, important for people to know too is like I have a background in search engine optimization and
Mhm.
marketing. So like I understand how, you know, Google works and whatnot. And I think people should also realize that, you know, sometimes a lot of the answers you find on Google are made up by people just like you.
Mhm.
And, you know, it's important to kind of look at what you're reading and um, not put too much stock into it sometimes because everyone has a unique body and you know a lot of those answers may be helpful but they could also be, you know, you could need something else than what Google says because Google is just a search engine and at the end of the day it just basically, you know, runs an algorithm and pops up things based on its ranking factors, so it's really not a doctor.
Yeah, it's so true. We are all so unique and individual that what works for one person may not necessarily work for another. Um, and yeah, that's what makes treating SIBO a little challenging too. There's not just one cookie cutter protocol, but yeah, so I completely agree with you. And I do have two questions, um, based on some of the things that you mentioned. So
Yeah.
elemental diet,
Yeah.
which one did you use? Did you use the one by Integrative Therapeutics or
So I used the nasty tasting one.
the
So
really?
yeah,
Okay.
I I did the Vivanex.
Yeah,
And
I'm
I guess as
impressed.
a type, yeah. A lot of people can't stand the taste. A lot of people can't get through it, but I don't know. I guess I'm naturally type A. Like I'm really driven, and like
Mhm.
if I find that something can make me feel better, like I really don't care what it tastes like. So
Yeah.
I'm willing to like drink it and not really care about it. So that's just me personally, but a lot of people can't tolerate the taste. I know that sometimes you can add like some Crystal Light or whatever to it to make it taste better, but there are better options now. And if I were to do the elemental diet, like kind of to reboot my gut in the near future or something, then I would definitely kind of look at, you know, there's a good one right by Integrative Therapeutics
Hmm.
now. And
It tastes good.
yeah,
Like,
I've tried it, I actually sampled it. Yeah.
yeah, I sampled it. That's all I've done.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was like, okay, like if I had that, because I tried the elemental diet. I tried the homemade one and
Yeah.
I lasted a day. It made me
Yeah.
feel so sick that I was
Yeah.
just like, I can't do it. But the integrated therapeutics one, I think I could do that one. It was pretty
Yeah.
good.
It actually tastes surprisingly good. I've
Yeah,
tried it.
I
Yeah.
was really impressed. And then in terms of Prokinetics,
Yeah.
which one did you find helpful for you?
Yeah, so I've actually used two. I've used erythromycin. I used that for 3 months after
Hmm.
one of my treatments, and then the other one I used was Resilor.
Okay,
And
yeah.
I would say Resilor was really good. I think it's a little stronger.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, so that was really helpful for me just to kind of like kind of kickstart that migrating motor complex in my
Hmm.
small intestine because
Yeah.
you know I can definitely tell that I don't know. It's frustrating, right? Because like
It is.
I don't understand, like, why doesn't motility just like kickstart back on its own sometimes? But like, I guess it's because of the nerve damage that they've shown in the research. But it's just so frustrating because you want that just to regenerate itself, right? And
Mm-hmm.
working
I
effectively.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's frustrating when your body isn't working the way it's intended to,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think our bodies are intelligently designed, and at some
Yeah.
point they will learn how to function again,
Yeah. Yeah.
as long as you keep doing, the things that are helpful.
Yeah.
So in terms of that, is there a type of diet that you continue to follow that helps you?
Yeah. So, I was a little more restricted when my symptoms were more severe than what they are now. So I went from like, I tried a strict specific carbohydrate diet.
Mm-hmm.
And actually for me, I found that that was not good just because it was too strict.
Mm-hmm.
I lost a lot of weight doing that. And I don't know, I kind of have found that I need some starch or some carbohydrates just because like, it's even this weird effect that I find in my body where it causes my muscles and my body to relax a lot better than without any starch. And I don't know what it is exactly, but
Mm-hmm.
I need some more starch than what a strict SED diet is like. So I now follow mainly, I've gotten to the point where I'm now, I'd say, FODMAP conscious, but like, just stay away from dairy, mainly lactose, like super high FODMAP vegetables. Like, I don't eat a ton of broccoli and onion and garlic just because I know that those things are going to cause, those symptoms to kind of flare up.
Mm-hmm.
So basically a general low fermentation or FODMAP diet now. I try not to put too much stock into diet nowadays just because I don't know, like I tend not to, because I've experienced with this really strict diet and like constantly thinking about it and worrying about every food I put in my body. Like I've learned that, I need to kind of be conscious, but not go crazy or overboard about it. So I eat healthy, but I stick to general terms. Put
Yeah.
it that way. Yeah.
I think that's an incredibly healthy way to live and to think, because again, it goes back to kind of that obsessiveness of, oh my gosh, like I can't cheat, I can't, and it's like I
Yeah.
can't eat out, I can't, and that gets again into a very, very negative space, which makes it hard to heal. So I think that is a very balanced, healthy way of thinking and living. Just out of curiosity, though, where do you stand on gluten?
So I eat gluten now.
Okay, and you
I
tolerate
didn't,
it.
I didn't used to eat
Yeah.
gluten. Back when my symptoms were very severe, I didn't eat a lot of gluten, but now I've kind of started eating gluten again. And, I actually find it's interesting. I actually find that for me, it's more of like a lower fermentation.
Mm-hmm.
I need to stick to that just because like I found that sourdough bread or breads that aren't like insanely fibrous are actually sometimes better for me than eating like a ton of vegetables just because of the
Yeah.
fermentation, I think. So,
Yeah. No, I love it.
yeah.
It's great. You've kind of customized things and figured out what works for you. And
Yeah.
that is, in my opinion, like what everyone's goal should be. Find
Yeah.
what works for you and listen to
Yeah.
your body. So that's
Definitely.
awesome.
And
That's
one other thing, just real
awesome.
quickly, is like, I think it's for people, like, I know myself, I kind of have an obsessive personality sometimes. And like, I have to kind of be careful of that, right? Because I realized that when I went on a super restricted diet, and I got to the point where I was like, just eating like 4 foods. And I was like, I had this like psychological view of like, okay, if I just stick to these things that like, these 4 foods, like I can like cure myself. And like
Mhm.
obviously that's like, you realize that diet for the most part, right, is not going to cure someone. So
Yep.
you need to kind of get nutrients in and you need to give your body some strength. That's what I learned because I did get really weak and I did lose a lot of weight doing that. So
Right.
yeah.
No, I think that's a very good point to make. Absolutely. So this has been incredible. Lots of great information. I love hearing your story. You are in a good place now, health wise. You're feeling good. Is that accurate?
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
I've come a long ways. Yeah.
Awesome. That's super exciting. I know that will be very encouraging for a lot of our listeners too. So, tell us, where can we find you?
Yeah, so my website I created is sibosurvivor.com. It's basically kind of just a resource with all the research I've done, all the kind of my story, and then I actually want to get into. This is kind of my passion now, and I love like diving into like products that can help or anything that can help people, just because you know I think there needs to be better solutions. So I'm kind of like looking into product development and stuff like that. So it's you
Wow.
can find everything there, and I'll like kind of keep things posted there.
That is awesome. Well, yes, everyone go check out SIBOsurvivor.com. Josh, thank you so much for your time today. Really enjoyed our conversation.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Talk to you later.
Bye.